Dr. Michael Fanous, a specialist in HIV medications and PrEP. And welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
So before we actually get into it, is there anybody who doesn't know what PrEP is?
Why don't you tell us anyway, Fred?
Well, I'm going to let Michael tell, but I wanted
Somebody.
to see, because there are, it depends on what world what your circle is, whether or not you know what this is.
Until doing this show and spending time with more gay men, PrEP was something very different for me. You know what I mean? Like it's pre-production, it's PrEP to me. That's how I mostly use it. Or at the time, earlier in the season when you were on, I was dating this girl who she was doing PrEP, but she was like fitness prep for a fitness show.
Okay,
And that
so
was where I
what
started.
is-
So I had no idea before this.
What is PrEP, Michael?
So PrEP is spelled capital P, little r, and then capital EP. It stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis, and it's just to differentiate from capital PEP, which is post-exposure prophylaxis. Post-exposure means after you've been exposed to HIV, we can give meds to prevent you from becoming HIV positive. And then pre-exposure prophylaxis is meds we can give you before you're exposed, similar to birth control. So if you're on this pill, you don't get HIV. So what's rocking the whole queer world now in LGBT spaces is that we can actually end the epidemic. But I don't want to talk just about PrEP. I mean, most of my focus on these TV shows has been talking about pre-exposure prophylaxis, but this is just one medication from a host of HIV meds that I specialize in and help people access. Most of my patients, or most of my clients rather, are HIV positive, and they're doing incredibly well on treatment. So my focus is ending the stigma. So we have effective medications. We even have one tablet once a day regimens, which we put all their medications into one tablet. And the great thing is that people that are taking medications are now undetectable. They do not transmit the virus to their partners.
What does undetectable mean?
I'm glad you asked. So undetectable status basically means if I were HIV positive and undetectable, it means I'm taking medication to make the level of virus so low in my blood that you can't detect it. And that's incredible.
Does it get rid of it entirely, or sorry, pardon me?
Thank you. No, we haven't cured HIV
Okay.
yet. There is cure research. So cure research would say, all right, so someone's been undetectable taking their medication for years. They're not transmitting it to their partner, even without a condom. This is incredible. Now, what if we remove treatment? If we remove treatment, the virus starts to replicate, unfortunately, within 2 weeks. And then you can start detecting the virus again in their blood. However, we can extend that period. So cure research is looking at why is it just 2 weeks? Why can't we make it 10 months, 10 years, maybe for the rest of their life? But what I'm trying to get at is PrEP is great for HIV negative folks. But there's still 25% of gay men in Toronto who are HIV positive, and that's not a bad thing, and it's not something to fear. My patients who take medication and are undetectable are fighting the worst thing in their life, and it's not the virus. It's the stigma. So unfortunately, if we can get them treatment and they can still go out there in the world and live healthy lives, we have studies that find HIV positive undetectable patients live just as long as those who are negative. That's a hallmark of treatment. That's a new thing. You can applaud that. So, yeah. So we call this treatment as prevention. PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's a prevention for those that are negative, and that's great. We keep them negative. But the bigger thing is if we can couple that. So if I'm sleeping with someone who's HIV positive and undetectable, and I'm on PrEP, a condom doesn't afford me any extra protection. In fact, this is chemically protected. People who say, oh, you're having unprotected sex, I say no. Your mother had unprotected sex.
Oh, snap.
Right? I'm having chemically protected, studied, and effective ways to prevent the transmission of the virus.
Okay, the real question is going to sound dumb. You put all of their stuff into one pill. Does the pill get bigger? Like, is it a big... I know I told you it was going to sound dumb, but is it literally a
Size
bigger
queen.
pill?
You know, what I've heard is that you've swallowed bigger. But
Well,
No,
we
the-
have established that Doug has done mouth things.
mouth things. So actually, no, the pill could be bigger, could be
wait,
smaller.
Or he missed a lot.
You missed a lot.
Right now.
You have to catch up. So
So it's
basically,
not-
the
it doesn't
tablet,
have
no. What it is anyone who's HIV positive and on treatment is taking at least 3 drugs. So back in the day when I first became a pharmacist, these 3 drugs were 3 pills, sometimes with multiple pills, multiple times a day. What it means to give a single tablet regimen, or we call an STR, means I can put 3 drugs in one tablet, the same size as my PrEP, or even one medication, but we can put it all into one tablet. There's no reason we need to give HIV positive people multiple tablets multiple times a day. I see a question in the audience.
Just because someone takes PrEP, does that mean they have to stop using condoms altogether?
No, so PrEP and condoms aren't mutually exclusive. You can use a condom while you're on PrEP. Some people say to me, oh, well, PrEP doesn't, prevent STIs. It wasn't invented to prevent STIs. People come to the pharmacy every day or come to the clinic, gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. You know how long it takes to cure that? A day. HIV, unfortunately, we haven't cured yet. It's lifelong treatment. So if someone is taking PrEP and they're being smart about it to prevent a lifelong infection, and people who are HIV positive are taking medication every day to be undetectable, why would I shame someone for condomless sex? There should be no shame for the same sex that straight people enjoy, and they only have to worry about pregnancy, and even that, they have a morning after pill. So I have a morning after pill. I have a pill for before this. We can really, if we just get the awareness out, and this is why I'm here on your show again, and this is what I promote in the news and what I promote online and what I promote at the AIDS Walk and what I promote at Pride, is that we can end AIDS.
In fact, we have a picture of you promoting, don't we? There.
Yeah,
thought it
this
was gonna
is
be the Babadook again, didn't you?
2016 AIDS Walk for Life, and this benefits the AIDS Committee of Toronto. But not only does it fundraise, we hit the streets again. We do this multiple times a year with the messages that undetectable equals untransmittable or uninfectious. So if someone's undetectable, they're not somebody to fear. If someone is undetectable, they are just the same as all the rest of your friends. They're not someone who can't have sex, who can't find a partner, who is infectious. So the message that you'll see there, undetectable equals uninfectious, is incredibly important. But equally as important are the campaigns that we have, and you can see List PrEP Now. So the List PrEP Now campaign I want to speak about a little bit. It's a campaign that's going on currently. The AIDS Committee of Toronto is helping promote this message. I'm helping to promote this message. PrEP is not yet covered by the government. But if you become HIV positive and you require lifelong treatment, then there's programs to cover that. Does that make sense? So the government is looking at it saying it's costly. To be on PrEP costs almost $1,000 a month. And insurance,
so much.
it is expensive, but that's because it's just one of the HIV medications. We've been using that Truvada in treatment for years.
So if it's not covered by the government, do many benefits plans cover that, or are most people just on their own trying to pay for this?
That's a good question. So right now, yep, some private insurance plans cover it. And yes, some people do cover it on the expense of the government, and I can't really officially speak about that right now at this table. How do they do that? It's depending on everybody's plan. However, it's cost prohibitive. The number one reason guys don't take PrEP is not a fear of side effects. It's not because it's a tablet once a day. It's not the inconvenience. It's the cost. Right?
So is there a cheaper one now?
I'm glad you asked. Yes, I'm happy to announce. Is there a script? Did we rehearse? I want to announce to you guys, as this is the first time I've done it live. Actually, the second time. CBC got me live last week, but
This is basically the same as
okay,
CBC.
yeah, it's the
Right,
same as
yeah,
CBC.
yeah.
It will now be a much more affordable generic PrEP on the market in Canada as of next month.
So what does generic mean? Like, is it more effective, or like, what's the T?
No, it's not more effective. It's not less effective. A generic just means there's a generic company. It's not the brand name that is making it. Now, you take Advil. Everyone knows Advil. And then you know that there's also store brand ibuprofen. The store brand is not any less effective than brand name Advil. It's just a preference. You want to pay more? Buy Advil. Same with Tylenol. Same with a lot of medications. Now, your antibiotics, you can pay a lot of medication for the brand name, and you can also save money on the generic. Now, I don't want you to think that generics are some kind of, sold on, in a parking lot, or it's not approved, or this is something that you're going to get.
Like the generic iPhone cable that makes your phone explode kind of thing.
Exactly.
Or catch fire.
Exactly. Now, Health Canada doesn't allow me to sell a generic unless it's tested to be effective, and it's tested for safety, and it's tested to be equivalent to the brand name. There's a lot of generics for a lot of drugs floating around the market. You can look online. You could look at non-accredited pharmacies for generic medications, but Health Canada just approved a generic for Truvada. Truvada is 2 drugs in one tablet. So the long name is emtricitabine, tenofovir, blah, blah, blah. But now there's a generic made by several different Canadian companies that will be sold in Canadian pharmacies, accredited Canadian pharmacies. It's tested and it's proven to be the same as the brand name.
What are we talking about in terms of price? If it was $1,000 a month before,
So we're talking, so generics, when they enter the market in Canada, thankfully they're regulated by the government, so they will not come out at even near that price. We're talking about less than half and perhaps a quarter of the price.
wow.
That's really good.
Now,
Do we
there-
have any questions?
I just wanted to ask, could anybody get PrEP?
So-
Because I know from a friend of mine, he got denied because he wasn't at risk.
no, so this is my issue. There,
Oh, you have a lot of issues.
I have a lot of issues, so how much time do you have? No, my number
Who
one.
is at risk? Like, what does that mean?
Good question.
So Ori also wasn't here. You got to speak like right into the mic or pick it up and talk into
Fair
it.
enough.
Okay, so if
Or beatbox like Gordon does.
I'll,
But don't
I'll
do that.
try. Me or him?
No.
Oh, I'm loud enough. So,
Oh, ain't that the truth, honey?
so people who are at risk of HIV are generally the highest risk are gay men. Then we have racialized communities. So if you are Indigenous Canadian, you're 9 times more likely to get HIV than a white Canadian. If you're an IV drug user, 30 times more likely. But if you're a gay man, you're 131 times more likely to get HIV. So, we know that there's these disproportionate weight of this virus affects our community. And because 1 in 4 gay men in Toronto have HIV, it makes sense that other gay men, to protect themselves, would take PrEP. If you've had condomless sex in the last 3 months, like 85% of gay men, then you're a good candidate to take PrEP. If your doctor doesn't know this already, come see me. I'll find you a doctor who knows something about HIV. If your doctor's unwilling to prescribe it, they should lose their medical license, because now Health Canada approved the use of Truvada for PrEP, or the use of emtricitabine and tenofovir for a preventative, and there is no reason your doctor should deny you. There are a lot of doctors who still shame people for condomless sex. That's unfortunate. There's a lot of gay men who shame other gay men for using PrEP, calling them all sorts of names. Oh, you're irresponsible. You have unsafe sex.
Prep whore.
What, you don't want to get HIV? Pff, lame.
Some people think that condoms are just as effective. They're not. I mean, we have over 1,000 people in Ontario test positive for HIV every year. In 2017, there's no reason that 1,400 guys should get HIV. Over 60% of them are gay men. Now, how does that make sense in 2017, 30 years out from the AIDS epidemic? Condoms either aren't being used, or condoms break, or condoms constrict blood flow, or they're just not comfortable, they're not as intimate as condomless sex. We need to stop shaming people for condomless sex. We need to look at the effective ways to prevent HIV transmission, and the 2 things that I said today were treatment as prevention for those that are HIV positive, and PrEP for those that are HIV negative. We can end the transmission of HIV, and we're seeing this in cities like San Francisco, where they made PrEP more available and less costly. We're seeing this in London, England, where people are accessing a generic. Even around the government is not covering PrEP yet, the NHS in England, and guys are accessing a generic online. But fortunately in Canada, we have these medications, we have government coverage that we still need to list PrEP on, and we have a generic that's going to be less costly rather. So all we need to do is get the awareness out there. We need to get awareness on the streets, and we're doing it. We need to get awareness with your medical practitioner, and they should be learning this. Otherwise, we'll get you one that does know it,
Awareness on the streets and a freak in the sheets.
pretty much.
So, Michael, if people have questions for you or want to contact you, how do they do that? What's your website?
medsexpert.ca, pharmacist@medsexpert.ca, medsexpert on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I don't know how else you want to reach me.
There you go. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.